Hey, yo, what up? This is Mark from the Mark Digital Live podcast, produced by Feltzine. I just want to let y'all know, if you really want to support us and keep this shit going, please subscribe and rate this on Apple Podcasts. Like us on Spotify if you're listening on Spotify. If you're on Spotify, also just go ahead and search for Feltzine and find our playlist and like that shit too, so you can keep up with all these updates, the music, and the podcast. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Feltzine. That's at Feltzine. You can also find us on Facebook with that same address, Feltzine. Facebook.com/Feltzine. However the fuck you use Facebook. Who even knows anymore? You can also please join our Discord. You can find the Discord link in any one of these podcasts. So if you're listening and you want to join the conversation, if you want to hear it live, if you just want to chat with us about shit, or if you want to ask us a question about the podcast or submit a question or a topic, just come through the Discord and do that. Join us over there. You could also find me at MarkDigitalHD on Twitter and Instagram, so go ahead and follow me there. And yo, thank you for listening. This is the Mark Digital Live podcast. Peace. Alright, so we got a new album by Mr. Kanye West. I'm just gonna say this as we get started. For all my people who are like, you know, my listeners who are very religious and who love God and who love Jesus, you know, that's great for you. I'm not a disciple. I'm not a believer in that way. You know, I believe in humanity. I believe in the things that we can do here that we can like see and impact. I don't know. I mean, there are some people who go as far as to, you know, just want all religion to end and who just do not see anything positive in religion. I guess people like Bill Maher or something like that. I don't know if I would necessarily say that. I think when you kind of look at things like philosophy, it does show that there is a certain human need for these sort of things, right? Especially for a large part of the population. But I'm not one of the niggas who need it. So that's where I'm at with it. So that being said, I say all that to say Kanye's new album, Jesus is King, is definitely a religious album. It's definitely a gospel album. Every track on here is about God, is about Jesus. It is playing off of a lot of religious samples, is playing off a lot of like gospel music, a lot of shit like that. That being said, I think because of the content and the subject matter, for me personally, it is my least favorite Kanye West album. I listened to it once through this morning, and I don't even know if I'll be bumping it again. Definitely not fully through. This is the first Kanye album I've ever felt that way about. Some Kanye albums have taken a minute to grow on me a little bit, but I was still excited about what I heard on them, and I was still excited about like continuing to come back to it and listen to it and play it. So I do think that there's definitely something here with this album that I'm just not going to be able to connect with, and I'm just not going to love. There's some interesting moments on here. There's some beats on there that I really do like just genuinely I really fuck with, where I'm like, okay, this is sick. So the beat for Follow God is really dope, and the beat for On God is really dope. On God and the beats for Follow God, that's tracks number 3 and tracks number 5. 3 is Follow God, number 5 is On God. Both of those songs have really fire beats. It seems like the beat for On God was made by Pierre Bourne. Pierre's killing it. I think this just makes me even more excited for a Playboi Carti album. Once again, I mean, the lyrics for On God at least are a little bit more I don't know, interesting in the sense, like, I like how he says some shit, like, talking about himself. He's like, he's the new commander-in-chief, that's on Keith, that's on God. Like, I thought that was an interesting way to, like, throw Keith's name in there and shit like that. So, yeah, you know, the songs On God and the songs Follow God, it goes back, it has a harder sound, it has a sound that's, what I would say is like a lot more hip hop based, but still has that kind of like gospel, kind of spiritual element to it, which is a really dope aesthetic. Like, I just want to say that, like, the idea that gospel music can be sampled, or these kind of organ sounds, these kind of gospel spiritual sounds can be flipped into hard hip hop. One, that's not anything that's super new. Kanye is one of the geniuses at creating those type of sounds and elements, but that's one, like, that is literally one of my favorite bags in hip hop. Like, I love when people get into that bag, but I like to hear hard lyrics over that type of shit. Like, I think it's iller when, you know what I'm saying, niggas is talking about, you know what I'm saying, pitching crack on the church steps on some, like, religious samples. Like, to me, that's fire. So I like the aesthetic. I kind of like where he was going with it a little bit, but it just, like I said, it just wasn't hitting for me in that way where I'm like, oh, these tracks are like super duper classics. But you know what I'm saying? I will say, like, those two songs, Follow God and On God, those are the two tracks out of this 11 song album, are probably the ones I'm gonna go back to. I'll probably keep those in my rotation, and I'll probably play that a lot. This is also coming from somebody, I know it's gonna sound like I really don't like this album, and that's fine, because I don't love this album, but I do love Kanye. I will say that. Like, I'm somebody who listened to Ye a lot. I'm somebody who even listened to The Life of Pablo a lot, and I bring this up because a lot of people say these are his worst albums. A lot of people don't fuck with these albums, but, like, I do, and I like them. And I don't think that they're as great as some of Kanye's other albums, such as, like, Yeezus or Dark Twisted Fantasy, or, you know, all the classics. Like, I could pretty much all the albums before that, right? Like, Kanye's first 6 to 8 albums or whatever can be considered classics. I think Kids See Ghosts is a classic. So I just think this album just didn't do it for me. And maybe this is how a lot of people felt with The Life of Pablo or Ye, when he was talking about mental illness, or, you know, on The Life of Pablo, where he was just being, like, super ratchet and kind of wild with the music. Maybe that's how other people felt about those music. The way that I feel about this religious shit is just so far from what I want to hear on a daily basis that I don't even care who's making it. I don't want to hear it. The best thing about this album to me is I like that it's 11 tracks, but it's less than a half an hour long. So all the songs are really short. So even though I found myself being like, yeah, I don't really fuck with this track, it was over, and I was able to hear something else after that and give it another shot. It just so happens that I just ended up not really enjoying that much in the album, except for the two moments that I mentioned, Follow God and On God. Following up on God, it does make me excited about this Playboi Carti album. I think that it's going to be really interesting to see how much Pierre's production style has grown, and how much, obviously, Playboi Carti is experimenting, and how much his style has grown. And it's wild that they've held this album back. So I'm really wondering how that's going to work and how that's going to go. This Jesus is King album, who knows what's going to happen. You know, we might have a situation where Kanye goes back and he adds tracks. He changed things up. We've had that happen with the albums like Ye. We had that happen with The Life of Pablo. So there's a lot that could happen. I might end up liking one of the additions that Kanye adds later. Maybe he reworks a track. There's a track with Ty Dolla $ign on here. I didn't really love it just because I just really, I don't know. Like, once again, with Ty Dolla $ign, I like when Ty Dolla $ign's being, like, a little bit more ratchet. And so I get it, though. I love Kanye. I love Kanye and Ty Dolla $ign together. I love Ty Dolla $ign. But like I said, this album just really didn't do it for me, and I think a lot of my listeners are going to be surprised to hear this, especially because of how excited I am anytime Kanye drops an album. I mean, I listened to it immediately. I think I heard it within the first hour of it dropping, but this one just wasn't it for me. I am excited. I want Yandhi. I mean, we talked about the Yandhi leak on here before, and I loved Yandhi from what I heard of it. I saved that album on, you know, once it was dropped online, I just even saved the rip, so I have a rip of a rip, and I think that album is great. I went back and I listened to Yandhi, and I think I'm going to be listening to Yandhi a lot more than I'm listening to Jesus is King. Yandhi is just way more up my alley, and I think the production level is on par with Jesus is King, and that's with listening to a version that's way, 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 like low quality. This shit is not even, I mean, this is a total rip of a rip. So yeah, that's pretty much what I would say. I mean, the one thing that I do want to talk about is the number 4, the song called Closed on Sunday. Kanye is doing something really interesting here, where she shouts out Chick-fil-A twice on the song. It's a part of the chorus where he's like, "Yo, you know, you closed on Sunday. You my Chick-fil-A." I don't know, man. Like, it seems like he's pulling to be on like captions, and I can definitely see like niggas using that as like a caption on Instagram and shit. So I think he won that there. He pulled off the Drake with that. It also sounds like a little bit like trolling to me. You know what I'm saying? Like when he talks about trolling the liberals, this is totally trolling the fucking liberals. Like that's the last thing a liberal wants to hear is fucking Kanye West giving a shout out to Chick-fil-A. This is pretty much as bad as the whole thing with like Equinox and all that shit. So yeah, man, I think that's mad interesting. I mean, the crazy thing about the end of the track, number 4, closed on Sunday, and I'm sorry if this is a spoiler alert. Yo, here's the thing. Just pause this before it ends and just listen to that song and come back before I ruin the end of that song for you. But if you don't give a fuck, then just keep listening and it's all good. At the end of the song, this nigga Kanye yells out, "Chick-fil-A!" Like, this nigga just screams this shit. Like, this nigga just coons out at the end of the song and barks like a chicken. Chick-fil-A! When I heard that shit, I literally, like, I had to tap my wife. I was like, did you hear that shit? She's like, I heard that nigga scream. He screams on this album a little bit. Like, he has a song where he's talking about how he calls his dad to give his dad advice. His dad starts giving him advice. So he spazzes on the album, and he gives us the classic Kanye. He gave us the classic yell, right? So you get a classic Kanye yell, and then you get a Chick-fil-A. You get both, right? And it's like, bro, what the fuck is going on? Like that was such a troll at the end that it did kind of change the perspective. I don't know. Maybe Kanye was doing that a little bit to give niggas like me a little bit of a dog whistle to be like, hey, like, this is also an aesthetic. But Kanye's just deep into aesthetic. He always dives 1,000% to the aesthetics. And we should have saw this coming when Kanye was justifying the idea of not using multiple materials on Yeezy products because the Bible says that you shouldn't mix materials. Like, once that happened, we should have known that Kanye was really going to be about this aesthetic. But it is pretty fucking hilarious to just see him, I don't know, just go full fucking throttle with this shit. And but also at the same time, just be fucking... Kanye is a funny nigga. He's actually funny. You know what I'm saying? Like, he almost had a show on Comedy Central. He was on the Chappelle Show. Like, Kanye is a funny... He has a good relationship with Dave Chappelle for a reason. Like, Kanye is funny. And I think that song, Closed on Sunday, reminded me of how funny Kanye could be. Like, when Kanye was like, you know, if I fuck a model who bleached her asshole and I get bleached on my t-shirt, I'm gonna be pissed off. Like, that's mad funny. You know what I'm saying? And like, that's kind of the thing with Kanye, is that like he also is he's a master troll. And I think that's the lens that I can look through this album, so I can have some sort of hope for where these next projects are gonna go. It's mad funny. Kanye was talking about, he told people that they have to be celibate, they can't have sex while they were recording this album. I mean, all these things are kind of ridiculous, right? So, and with the MAGA shit, it's a super religious music. People are like, he's making music for white evangelicals. Maybe. I mean, and if he is, he's still trolling the shit out of them with the other messages that are on this album. So if there's some kind of weird master plan which I did hear him rap about on this album, where he's sneaking in these themes of prison reform and trying to give these people a closer bridge to the black community, then I'm with it. I mean, it's a very interesting way to approach it. It's not typical. But I like that. I mean, that's what Kanye is here to do. So, you know, it's a super short album. There's not too much to talk about because most of it is basically Jesus, God, Jesus, choruses, singing, Jesus, God, Jesus. I mean, it's Christian rap for sure. Probably better than any Christian rap that's ever existed, because Christian rappers are usually garbage. Them niggas is just, they can't really spit. The best Christian rappers are usually battle rappers who don't curse and shit like that. And I think Kanye, if anything, he probably like expanded that genre, and if not, he's at least opened it up to where the closest mainstream thing to that is Chance the Rapper, and his last album was terrible trash. I want to call this Kanye album trash, but I won't, just because of the production level. But the content is trash to me. Other people might like it. So it's debatable. Like, if someone thinks that this album is a classic because they love Jesus Walks and they love that sort of Kanye, then I'm not against it. Like, I could see that argument. I'm with it. But for me, like, I'm not fucking with it. The content is just empty to me. And Chris HK, DJ Chris HK, who's been on this show before, he even said it. Like, it does feel like the way that Kanye on The Life of Pablo was using like ratchetness to shock people is the way that he's now using Christianity and God to shock people. And I think that that's possible. And if that's the case, like, I get that too. Like, everything can be played with, everything can be an aesthetic, and maybe Kanye is just coming from a real place, but he's just a provocative person, right? So he's always going to be provocative in whatever he's doing and however he's presenting anything, because that's just a part of his nature. That's a part of his creativity. That's a part of what makes him feel free. And it does seem like Kanye feels free. It seems like he's doing whatever he wants, and I'm with that. I'm enjoying it. I'm not against that. Just not my favorite shit. Not going to be in super rotation for me, which is extremely rare for a Kanye album. And if a Kanye album is not in my super rotation, then I'm going to just call it trash, because I love this nigga, and I would much more rather have a classic album for him, from my perspective, that I could play all the time, because I'll play it to death, and I'll learn a lot from it, and it will inspire a lot of my aesthetics. So that's where I am with that. Disappointing for me on that end, but I'm not totally disappointed, like, oh, I'm mad disappointed because I wanted something better. It's just everything that I thought it would be, and in that sense, it's not a disappointment and a shock, but it's just a disappointment because I kind of would wish that Kanye would be maybe a little bit more creative if he was going to do this, maybe a little bit more sophisticated in the ways that he's going to work in these religious symbols and these religious ideas. There is a lot of art that I appreciate that is religious, right? So much great art is inspired by religion and God, especially like Christianity. I mean, any of the big three, monotheistic religions, right? I even love I love Greek mythology. That's a religion. I love Roman mythology. That was their religion. Those were spiritual things that they believed in. And there was a lot of amazing art and amazing stories that happened. And I would even go as far as to say there's a certain level and dedication to the art that people are able to do with religion that like non-religious art can just, seems like, never get to. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of non-religious art that I fuck with, that I love, that I think is amazing and great. But the religious shit, like, there's shit that you look at, you be like, yo, this is fucking incredible. How could a human even do this? 9 times out of 10, that shit has some religious significance to the person who created it. And that's me saying this objectively as someone who doesn't, like, who's not religious. So, I mean, in that sense, it's a little bit disappointing, and there's things that could be better. But it's an album. It's here. It's Kanye West. So we got to talk about it. And you know what? It's creative. So altogether, those are my thoughts on the album. I would say that there is there's a feature with, it's not the last song, it's the second to last song, but there's a feature with the clips, with clips, however we want to, say it. And Pusha T's on it, Malice is on it. That's one of the first times in a long time that I've heard the two of them together. So that was really cool to get to hear them on a track. But I mean, once again, like, I don't love this Malice. Like, this Malice who's now rapping about mad religious shit, it's not super interesting to me. I think he's calling himself No Malice now. When Pusha T's in his religious church bag, it's my least favorite version of Pusha T. So it's my least favorite version of pretty much 3 of my favorite rappers ever. It's my least favorite version of Kanye West, my least favorite version of Pusha T, and my least favorite version of Malice. So there we go. There's that. I mean, this shit's just not for me, y'all. And I told myself that this album's 27 minutes long, and I cannot do a review that's longer than the album. And we're already about to hit 20 minutes. Plus the intro on this motherfucker, we're gonna be at 21. So I'm out this motherfucker, yo. That's it. That's all I gotta say about the album. I usually listen to an album a lot more before I judge it. However, I'm not really gonna be listening to this album. So I figured I might as well give y'all my reaction off rip. And that's where I'm at with it. Shouts out to Pierre Bourne for creating the best fucking beat on this album. And shouts out to Kanye for, for the one track that I love. Shouts out to him for Follow God, because I think that shit is fire. So, I hope that's chill. Any kind of issues you have, let me know. We could chop it up in the Discord. There's a whole conversation about this album already happening in the Discord. That's why I decided to add my thoughts to it in this way. So I'm going to drop this link in the Discord, and we're going to talk more about this. So join us there. You can find us everywhere online at Feltzine. That's FELTZINE. Peace.